aficionados out there. I want your honest opinion.
Well, right from the start, I think I'm a good judge of character, and I can tell, for the most part, with maybe 90% accuracy when someone is lying, when people are insincere, especially people who are professional, and maybe they can act a little bit better. Maybe they have a little more talent when it comes to deceiving. From the beginning, Courtney's behavior and what I saw Courtney do surrounding the death and the funeral and the reading of the letter, red flags were going up all over the place. But I wanted to be fair. So I looked at all the evidence, looked at Tom's research and all the investigation material that he had on his website. I looked at it all. And it just was amazing to me that the Seattle police wouldn't look at this and say, hey, guys, we better take another look at this. So, no, right off the bat, I knew there was something suspicious. My inclination is to really wonder about Courtney. I'm not going to say I think she was involved, but if I had to bet money on it, I probably would bet money on it. I don't want to say anything's for sure because who knows for sure. But the evidence, I think it's overwhelming.
Let's backtrack a bit. We first did an article in this magazine, Max and I wrote for, called Canadian Disc, and we were very skeptical of Tom Grant. We'd never heard of him. In fact, we questioned him in the article, and we were extremely cautious.
That's a good point. I did too. The first time we had Tom on, we were not easy with him, and he had to win that respect. Continue, Ian.
That's right. And then Max and I traveled to L.A., and we met with him for hours on end, and we did a big search on Tom Grant. At first, in all honesty, I thought he was some wacky conspiracy theorist, but Max and I, we did this huge search on his past, clients he's represented, and I think Max would agree that we found out this man has an impeccable record as a PI, a former detective, and that, for us, meant that this guy's serious. And, the key to any case, obviously, is credibility. Max, are you there?
Yeah, let me add to that.
Yep.
I want to talk about a recent tape that we heard while we were researching our second book. It's quite remarkable and sort of adds to what Ian was just saying about Grant and his credibility. On this tape, we hear Tom Grant having a conversation with Courtney's lawyer, Rosemary Carroll, godmother of her child. And they're talking about how Rosemary is very suspicious of all these events. Courtney wouldn't let her see the suicide notes, et cetera, et cetera. And you hear on these tapes, Tom Grant keeps saying, well, I still think it might be a suicide. I still think that it could be a suicide. And it's Courtney's own lawyer that's telling him, no, Kurt wasn't suicidal.
Interesting.
The note is a forgery. The note is she thought it was either traced or forged. And so you have Tom Grant being very reasonable, this guy that everybody thinks is this great conspiracy theorist, saying, well, no, I still think it might be a suicide. And her lawyer, very close friend of Kurt and Courtney, the godmother of their child, urging him to investigate, urging him to look into the possibility of murder. She was convinced that Kurt did not commit suicide. And to me, that's one of the most compelling pieces of...
Max, that's a very good point. And for the record, we also heard the tape of Courtney telling Tom Grant, you're the best PI I've ever had, and, I've had a lot of other guys, and they're terrible, but Tom, I really respect you, you're fantastic. In Courtney's own words.
And the other thing, too, is when Tom decided to continue the case, he did it with his own money. He didn't have a book out. He wasn't trying to make money on the case. He paid out of his own pocket, almost went broke because he wasn't taking on other jobs, right?
Alan, you're 100% right. Tom Grant is one of the most ethical people that I have ever met. He really stands, face it, Alan, any PI who comes out and accuses their own clients of
Exactly.
murder, okay, this is basically suicide for his own career.
Because
who's going to hire him after that? But Tom Grant firmly believes that he was duped by Courtney, and it's his reputation as a professional, and he he says he cannot hide the fact that a crime might have been committed here, and he has to go further.
Okay, now I have to pay you guys.
Okay, well, Tom, go ahead. Put your input here. Yeah, I remember this. I remember how it was really tough there because you wouldn't give up. And the Seattle police didn't like this California PI giving them a hard time. So they shut the door.
Yeah.
And it was, and you really took it hard there. And it was, I'll never forget that. Let's talk about the evidence that let's talk about the motive Courtney would have to see Kurt die.
Well, we know that there was a prenuptial agreement. Courtney has talked about that publicly. There's nothing controversial about that. She asked Kurt to sign a prenuptial agreement in '92 before they were married. She said that she thought she'd be more famous. She thought she'd be richer than Kurt, and she didn't want him running away with her money. So they had this prenuptial agreement, and then, as we see in these tapes and from her own lawyer, they were in the process of divorcing. So, this doesn't prove anything. But if the divorce had gone through, Courtney would have got virtually nothing. As it is, she's inherited an estate worth tens of millions of dollars. That's motive. That's something
that's a huge motive.
Always look at.
He wanted to leave her. If that went through, she would have nothing.
That's right, and that was before she was a famous movie star, a famous rock star. Remember that. She was still unknown at this time, except as the wife of Kurt Cobain.
He would have literally killed her career.
Because would love have been given the chance if it wasn't the connection to Kurt?
Of course not, especially if it came out that he was dumping her for another woman or whatever was going on.
Go ahead, continue. What other reasons, other motives that she might have had for this?
Well, there's certainly the jealousy, the jealousy thing. When we listen to these tapes, she's obsessed with finding out who Kurt was with, who he bought that second plane ticket for. And she knew that he bought a second plane ticket. She didn't know where. She didn't know when he was leaving, and she was trying to. She's actually on tape trying to convince Tom Grant to bug Caitlin's house, the drug dealer's house that she suspected Kurt was having an affair with. She offered a friend on another tape. She's offering a friend of hers $5,000 to put a bug in Caitlin's house. She was obsessed with finding out if Kurt was having an affair with this woman. So there's the jealousy motive. There are other women that she mentions as well. She suspected that Kurt was having an affair. She just didn't know with whom.
One of the things, Tom, remember, I'm trying to remember now, this was, there's so many things, I'm trying to put this all together from 5 or 6 years ago when we did these shows. But, oh, man. All right, I guess the thing I wanted to talk about, Tom, when she fired you.
She never fired.
Now here's the question. I'm sorry, because there's so many things going through.
I heard the introduction, and they had said that on the news a couple of times. And Courtney wants everybody to think that I was fired, and I know people say that accidentally, but she would like people to think that I was fired because then that makes it look like I'm just disgruntled and upset at her, and that's why I'm doing this. But she never did fire me. In fact, she continued. After I wrote her a letter telling her of my suspicions 30 days after the body was found, instead of firing me and calling me an idiot and get out of my life, I never want to see you again, instead of doing what we expected her to do, she called me up and was very nice and very respectful and continued hiring me to do other things unrelated to the Cobain case.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay, I'm corrected, and I appreciate that. Here's what I was driving at, though. When he was missing, and you were looking for him, you were looking for the missing Kurt Cobain, was there a time that you were going to look in that garage where he was found, but she kind of tried to, stonewall you to not look in there?
No, actually just the opposite, but I know what you're getting at. There was a time when she tried to sabotage my investigation when I was meeting with Dylan at the house after I'd flown back up to Seattle after the body was found, and I asked to have Dylan come over to the house that I wanted to talk to him. And when he arrived, he was ushered upstairs real quick when I was in the kitchen, and I didn't even know he'd gotten there. And when he came back down, he had been shot up with heroin after talking to Courtney for about a half an hour, and all of his answers were just totally canned answers, and he was completely useless to me.
There was a time on these tapes that Tom Grant thought that he had found found Kurt, and it's interesting to hear how Courtney reacted. Do you want to talk about that, Tom?
Yeah.
At the hotel, yeah. There was